Hi, my name is Stephanie Agaton Michaels, founder and CEO of the Stephanie Michaels Software Company. In this video, I'm going to teach all aspiring and current software developers, software programmers, whatever it is that you call yourself, a coder, a vibe coder, an engineer, whatever you call yourself. Honestly, me, what I call you guys, I call you coders, okay? I don't call people who write code software developers because that term really is reserved for people like myself. So the software developers are people that develop software. 90% of coders don't know how to develop a software to save their life. And if you were to put them to the test and tell them to develop a software, they're going to develop the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. It's going to be unuser friendly, it's going to be ugly as hell, and it's not going to be beautiful. And it has to be beautiful. Software has to be beautiful. Software has to be easy to use. It has to be intuitive. And 90% of engineers, so called engineers, whatever they call themselves, whether they're engineers, computer graphics, computer science, graphics programmers, if you take a look at the portfolio of their work, stuff that they created on their own, you're going to see the ugliest work you've ever seen in your entire life. And I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just being honest. You guys make ugly work. Okay? Just go and look at Blender version 1. It was ugly. Okay? Go watch it. Go. Go to Google, go to YouTube and Google Blender version 1. Ugly. And go look at most graphics programmers applying for jobs. If they're smart, they have some sort of website that they've made for themselves. They have some sort of portfolio that has their previous so called work or so called engines that they made on their own. Go look at their engines. It's the ugliest things you've ever seen. And how do I know this? Because I hire some of these people and they come to me and show me their portfolios and my jaw drops because it's the ugliest things on the planet that these people show in their portfolios and I'm like, Jesus Christ. So very quickly I learned that most people who write code don't have the design gene. A lot of the engineering people don't have the design gene. They don't have the ability to create things beautifully. So it's important to have someone who is a great designer, who has a great eye for design and colors and beauty, versus expecting the person who writes the code to also be the person with the perfect eye for design. So we're going to talk about all of these things today, and I'm going to keep it very real with you. I hope you're not the type to get easily offended, because if you are, you really should not be watching my videos. Okay. I'm a very blunt person. Okay. All right. So welcome to our website. This is smsoftwarecompany.com. I am the founder and CEO of this company. Now, if you go to the front page, which is where we are, and you click learn, when you click learn, this page that you see here that says about us, it's really just this page. It's the computer graphics page. So under computer graphics, you have all this stuff. But if you click on computer graphics itself, it's going to take you to this page that you see here. Okay. So when you click learn in the home page, it takes you here. And here you're going to see some stuff and you're going to talk about the free trial. And the free trial gives you a warning. This warning has been here since, gosh, I don't know, 2023, when we started noticing people were copying us like crazy. Companies were losing their minds trying to copy the Univah Film Engine. So since 2023, you can see that when all my pages were created, 2023, my God, it even tells you the exact date. Since June 2023, when this page was created, we've had this message up here. Okay. And so we see you, and we're talking about, hey, we've noticed that a lot of companies are trying to change their tools to be more like our tool, and this is basically what I say here at the free trial download link. I said, if you are inspired by our work, instead of trying to rip off our unique design and copying our software without crediting us as your inspiration, do the right thing. Contact us. We are, after all, a software company. And in case we haven't made this clear, we don't only develop software for ourselves, we can develop software for you. Yes, you watching this video, if you have the capital, you come to us and we will develop whatever tool you want for your company so that you can actually be at the forefront of innovation instead of just pretending that you are. Okay? So if Reallusion has the capital and they like something that we've done for Univah, instead of being a copycat and trying to rip off our design, the intelligent thing to do to prevent them from being sued by our company would be to contact us and say, "Hey, Stephanie, we really love this thing that you're doing. How much would it cost for you to create something similar for our company?" And then we'll give them a quote and then we can create it for your company. Okay. We are a software company. That's literally our job. Okay. We don't discriminate. The only people we ever turn down are people that are super rude to us. Okay. So if you're not super rude to us, if you're not a giant butthole, chances are we're going to work with you. We're going to help you out. Okay. Okay. So that's what we're saying here. Now, with that said, let's go and take a look at software development. I'm going to teach you guys how to develop software in this generation because um, big companies trying to copy smaller companies, that's not a new thing. That's happened since the beginning of time, right? So um, let's take a look at how you guys can protect yourselves. Those of you who are freelancers, freelance developers, lone developers, vibe coders, especially those of you who are heavily reliant on using ChatGPT for your coding or whatever AI assisted coding tool that you're using. I understand that people these days basically find it difficult to think without asking ChatGPT what ChatGPT should tell them to do, So, especially if you're that kind of person, this video really is for you because eventually you're going to get yourself in trouble because you're going to end up getting sued by somebody for copying their work. Okay. So, I'm going to show you how to avoid these problems. So let's focus on computer graphics. So we have in computer graphics we have APIs, right? We have computer graphics APIs, and the big ones are OpenGL. So we have OpenGL, we have Vulkan, and then we have DirectX. Okay, these are computer graphics APIs. Now, what can you use and what can you not use without being sued? If I make an OpenGL software, OpenGL is free for everybody. It's an API, okay? It's like going to the library and pulling a book. If I go to the library and pull a book, and the next day you go to the library and pull the exact same book, I don't have the right to sue you for copying me, because that book is public domain. It's available to everybody. I'm not the inventor of that book. There's nothing that says that book can only be pulled by me, by my company. So anybody can use the OpenGL API to do whatever it is that their skill level in programming will allow them to do. Same thing with the Vulkan and the DirectX. Are you getting my drift? So this is the foundation of programming. You cannot make any software that has to do with graphics without going through one of these guys. These are the pillars upon which your foundation stands. Okay? So you either have an OpenGL foundation, a Vulkan foundation, or a DirectX foundation, or if you're fancy, you have all three. Okay, if you're fancy, you have certain things in your software which you have to use DirectX, and then you have other things in your software which you've probably optimized to use Vulkan, and then you have most of your stuff in your software using OpenGL. Okay, because OpenGL was here before Vulkan and all that other stuff. So most applications from Autodesk Maya, Houdini, Blender, Unreal Engine, most applications you see are built on OpenGL, whether you know it or not. Okay. So Um, okay, so that's number one. You're not copying by using Vulkan. You're not someone else who also used Vulkan to make their application can't sue you for that. Okay, so I'm trying to teach you in this video what you can do that's available to the public and what is someone's proprietary work, because it seems like a lot of you just don't know. And maybe that's the problem, is that you're just not educated and you don't know. So I'm going to teach you so that after watching this video, you no longer have an excuse. You can't claim you didn't know the difference between copying and what you can't copy. Okay? All right. So these are APIs. Now, let me erase this and I'm going to show you some other things that you're going to be using a lot as a developer if you make computer graphics software. Okay. And you should be taking notes. I highly suggest you take notes when I speak. Okay, so we've talked about the graphics APIs, the three juggernauts, which are OpenGL, Vulkan, DirectX. Now, let's talk about something called IDE. Okay, this is your development environment. Okay, there's so many of them, especially in today's time with vibe coding. There's so many new little IDEs for vibe coding coming out. I really honestly can't keep track. And I have no interest in keeping track with them because the old school ones like Visual Studio works perfectly for me. And that's what I'm happy with. Okay, so I just stick with Visual Studio. But let's talk about the big guys. You have Microsoft. Okay, so you have Microsoft Visual Studio. This is what I use for all my development. And then you have the Qt framework, or you have Qt Creator. Okay, so there's Visual Studio, there's Qt Creator, there's so many other development environments. Okay, and just because I use Visual Studio and I tell you that I use Visual Studio, and then tomorrow you go and say, oh, Stephanie uses Visual Studio, therefore I shall also use Visual Studio. Okay, I don't have the right to go in on a tantrum and start accusing you of copying me, because I did not invent Visual Studio. Visual Studio is like a calculator. Anyone can use it. Again, using the library analogy, it's a book in a library that's available to the public. Anyone can pull intelligence from this book. Okay? So, uh, Visual Studio is an IDE, it's a tool used by developers to develop software. So anyone can use this tool if you know how to use this tool. Okay? So you have every right to download the Qt Creator and use it to develop your apps. You have every right to download Visual Studio and use it to develop your apps. Okay? Okay. Um, So that's that. That's not copying. You're not copying anyone just because you use the same tools. If I am a carpenter and you're a carpenter, it's understandable that we would use similar tools. But the point is, just because you have a nail, I have a nail, you have a hammer, I have the same hammer, and maybe we both have the same hammer from the same creator of the same hammer, the same manufacturer. Maybe we use the exact same tools. You use the same saw, you have a saw, I have a saw for sawing wood, right? But at the end of the day, you build a house, I build a house, we're going to build two totally different houses. Are you catching my drift? So the tools you use can be the same, but the output, what you output with those tools, is what's going to make the difference. Okay? Okay, very good. All right, stay with me. Let's keep going. I'm going to talk to you now about some other things. So far you've learned about graphics APIs, you've learned about development environments, and we're trying to teach you how to be confident as a developer so that you're not worrying about being sued. Okay? All right. Now let's talk about some advanced computer graphics features, because this is where we have a lot of people that are worried, people that are just not sure what they can copy, what they can do. So let's talk about an actual feature, because what happens in the industry a lot of times is People in the companies in the industry, they like to match features. So if Autodesk Maya has area lights, spotlights, okay, so let's talk about the basics. Every computer graphics software or digital content creation tool like Maya, Blender, um, uh, 3D Studio Max, Univah. Okay, let's talk about lights. Okay, because I'm just trying to teach you so that you understand some foundational things that you should have that you don't have to worry about being accused of copying. Okay, so let's talk about lights. If Maya has area light, spotlight, point light, and environment light, IBL, image based light, if Maya has these lights and you decide that you're going to make your own software, and you also decide, okay, you need to have area lights, you need to have spotlights, you need to have point lights, and you need to have image based lighting. Is that copying? Are you copying Maya by doing this? No, you are not. Autodesk cannot sue you just because they have area lights, spotlights, point lights, image based lights. And then in your software, you also have area lights, spotlights, point lights, image based lights. Autodesk cannot sue you for that. Why? Because again, these things fall under the public domain type. These are foundational principles for lighting. Of course, your house needs light bulbs. So, if your house has light bulbs and my house has light bulbs, you cannot accuse me of copying your house. You did not invent the light bulb. It's there for everybody. Okay. We can all buy light bulbs. Okay. So, this is what I want you to start thinking about. Area lights are light bulbs, but in digital space. Spotlights are light bulbs, but in digital space. They simulate different types of lights. So a point light simulates a certain type of light that you have in the real world, like a bulb. A spotlight simulates like a literal spotlight, like a flashlight. So if you wanted to simulate something like a flashlight, if you animated a character holding a flashlight and you wanted that flashlight to look like a flashlight, then you would use a spotlight and put it inside that flashlight in 3D so that when it points to something, only that thing that it's pointing to is illuminated. You understand? So these are all public domain type of things. These are bulbs, but in digital space. And we all have to go to the store to buy bulbs so that we can light stuff. Okay? Now, here's where it is copying and where you can get in trouble. You're not in trouble for going to the store to buy bulbs so that you can put bulbs in your car, so that you can put lights in your house, so that you can have lights and mesh lights. Oh, there's also something called mesh lights, emissiveness. That like when your laptop screen has some emissiveness to it, like the Apple logo that glows in the back. Okay, so you're not in trouble for having these lights. It's not copying because they belong to all of us. Okay, anyone who knows how to implement these lights. Now that's the key. They're available, but not everyone will know how to implement these lights. So if you know how to implement these lights, you can. You can put it in your software, and it's not copying anyone. It's for the public. Now, where as a developer, this is where you can tell the ones who innovate versus the ones who are just copying Maya or who are just copying Blender or who are just copying Unreal Engine or they're just copying all the softwares that existed before them. They're just copying Houdini. Here's how you know the difference between the ones that are just copying Univah or they're just copying everything Univah does. Because design, for those of you who don't know, design is the solution to a problem. That's what great design is. We don't just design stuff just to design stuff. We design things a certain way to solve a problem that exists. So, yes, you've implemented these lights into your software. Great. Now, the way in which the user can add these lights into a 3D scene is what's going to make things different from software to software. You see, that's where the novelty comes in. In Maya, you might have to go to click the button, click the light button, choose a light, area light, and then maybe it shows up in the scene, but you don't see it in real time in the viewport. But that's how Maya does it. And then when you go to the light controls for that area light, you have some parameters for the area light, like the light color, light intensity. Uh, and these are standard things that every light should have, correct? That's common sense because think about it. In your house, if you have a nice fancy house, you probably have an intensity slider in your house, right? And your intensity slider is the little thing that you slide to increase or dim the lights. Okay, so if you have a nice date night with your wonderful, perfect girlfriend, you don't want the lights to be so bright. Okay, you want to set the mood, put on some nice music. Okay, and you want to dim those lights real nice. That's the intensity slider in real life. In 3D, we just call it intensity. In Univah, we call it watts based on real life. Okay, so now this is how you start to think like a designer, like a problem solver. You say, okay, in real life, what controls do people need in order to control the bulbs in their house? Well, we need an on and off switch. So in 3D, when you're developing your software, you say, okay, I must add an on and off switch to turn off this light in this area of the house. And then you think, okay, well, what if I have 100 lights in my house and I want to turn them all off at the same time? Then in Univah, we solve that problem. You see, this is how you think like a problem solver. And I promise you guys, if you would learn how to think like a problem solver, it's going to keep you from being a copycat. It's very difficult to be a copycat if you just think. If you just actually start thinking about how what you're creating in 3D corresponds to the real world, you're going to find there are a million problems that you can solve. Okay? So in Univah, we have a beautiful, convenient on off switch right there in the attribute editor for every light you select. And then we have a kill switch, a master kill switch that will kill all the lights in the house. If you have hundreds of lights of different kinds, it will kill them all. One click. You see? So that's something different that we did in our software that other softwares don't just have. You go to iClone, you're not going to see in iClone 7, iClone 6, iClone 5, you're not going to see a master kill switch that just kills all the lights one click. You're not going to see that. You go to Houdini, I don't think Houdini has that. You would have to probably set up some node graphs, you see? There would be you're going to have to set some things up to make it do that. It's not just there as a button that you click, but Univah has that. You see how very simple design choices can save you hours. You're going to save your users hours upon hours of wasting their time setting stuff up. If you had thought about it and done that for your clients, for your users, that's called quality of life improvements. In software development, we have something called quality of life improvements. They seem simple, but they may shave you hours of your own workflow because we, as the engineers, we thought about that for you. Okay? So that's the novelty. It's not novel that you have area lights in your software, spotlights, point lights, and image based lighting. That's not novel. You can't take that to SIGGRAPH and expect SIGGRAPH to be impressed. They're going to say, how is this novel? What's different about it? You see, it's the same thing we did with sign distance field. It's not novel that we have sign distance field. That alone is not going to impress SIGGRAPH. You cannot just go around saying, oh, well, we have sign distance field, so therefore we're unique. No, we are not. Sign distance field is just like bulbs. It's a feature. Anybody has access to this feature, including Realusion, including Unreal Engine, including Houdini, Maya. Everybody, including you, the freelance developer, anybody can go and read about sign distance field and they can implement that in their software if they understand it. It's just like having area lights, spotlights, point lights, and image based lighting. The difference, here's what's going to make it novel. Here's what's going to make you different from your competitors. You're going to have to start thinking like a problem solver. It's going to be all about the design. It's going to be what problems are you solving that the other tool that has SDF does not solve. So you have to think of things in terms of solving problems. That's the issue that I'm realizing a lot of people don't have these days is a problem solving mentality. People aren't thinking like that anymore. They're just, oh, let's copy what Univah did. Oh, let's copy what Unreal Engine did. Oh, let's copy Maya. Let's just copy Cinema 4D. No, no. Why? Why would you just copy? Don't just copy. Think. Think about the real world. Think about the user. Ask yourself, what would the end user be impressed with? What's going to make life easier for the end user? If Houdini does SDF, but they're slow and their rendering is slow, then let's do SDF, but let's do it fast. You see, that's how you become novel. That's the novelty. So when we submit our work to SIGGRAPH, we don't just say, hey, SIGGRAPH, look, we have SDF. We don't just go to SIGGRAPH and say, hey, SIGGRAPH, look, we have area lights, point lights, and point. Who cares? Everyone has that. They're going to say, well, how is it different from what's in the industry already? And that's a great question. So you have to now show that, okay, yes, this is what we have that's different from Houdini, from look at how we're doing things versus Houdini, look at how we do it versus Maya, look at how we do it versus Cinema 4D. This is what we do versus so and so, such and such, blah, blah, blah. This is how we do it. It's how we're different from Blender, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So this is the mind of a software developer. And this is why I was telling you just because people can vibe code, you can vibe code all day long. But having this ability, this is a different kind of skill. Okay. That's why I told you a lot of coders, the things that they produce is ugly. No offense, but it's just so ugly. Okay. They would never in a billion years make something as beautiful as Univah. Okay. Because Univah wasn't made by a coder. Univah was made by a luxury suit developer. I understand beauty. I come from the design world. I've been designing clothing for a long time, and the clothes that we design are beautiful. Look at my models. Go to my website. Everything is beautiful. The clothes I wear, everything is awesome. I make my own shoes for crying out loud. My models wear my shoes. They don't just wear shoes, they wear shoes with my name on it. so this is not luck. I didn't stumble onto Univah. Univah didn't become great through luck. It's great because the person who made it, who designed it, the architect of Univah, is a designer, not an engineer. I'm a designer first, engineer second. So I already have the eye for design. I didn't have to go hire a designer. But for a lot of you who do vibe coding and all this coding stuff, you're going to probably need to team up with a designer who understands colors, who understands design, the psychology of color, prime colors, secondary colors, all that fun stuff. Okay. So you're probably going to have to link up with someone who understands beauty and how to make things beautiful. Okay. So that you're not over there wiring node graphs and you're so caught up in your node graphs that you forget, hey, this is supposed to be beautiful. And you forget that, you know. So, okay. Now, we've talked about area lights, spotlights, point lights, IBL, and how that's not novel. Anyone can add that to their software. It's not copying. What's going to be copying is if you copy the exact UI that Maya has. Like literally the exact UI, no changes, like nothing's different. You see, so if you click on a spotlight in Maya, what happens? You see it in the viewport. There's like a wireframe representation of that light. You can move it around with the gizmo. Now let's talk about gizmos. In most 3D softwares, you have something called a gizmo. The gizmo is that little transform tool that transforms the object. It has the little arrows. You can drag the object left and right, up and down. That's the transform gizmo. Then you have the rotate gizmo. Then you have the scale gizmo. Okay. Now, if Univah has a gizmo, Unreal Engine has a gizmo, their gizmo looks different, doesn't it? you see? So the concept of a gizmo, that's not novel. That's not copying. That's a tool. Are you starting to catch the drift now? So using the same tools or concepts of the same tool, but changing the look, that's okay. We can all have gizmos in our tool, and we should. I don't know any 3D software that doesn't have a gizmo. Without a gizmo, it's just going to be really difficult to use. So we all should have a gizmo. Real iClone has a gizmo. Maya has a gizmo. Blender has a gizmo. But our gizmos don't look the same, right? They don't look the same. Now, how would you feel if I went and I saw the Unreal Engine gizmo and I said, oh, wow, I love the Unreal Engine gizmo look. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to make sure our gizmo looks exactly identical to the Unreal Engine gizmo. See, now that's where you start to get in trouble. Okay. Now, I don't think Unreal Engine, because they're such a big company, they may not really sue you for that because it's such a minor thing to copy, but it's really bad taste. And honestly, you should be ashamed of yourself. And I really don't think you deserve to be called a software developer if you don't have the ability to do your own stuff, to design your own stuff. You really don't deserve to be in the same category as us because you're not respecting other people's IP. Okay. So I would never go and copy the Unreal Engine gizmo. I just wouldn't do that. I would make my own. Okay. Quite frankly, I don't even like the Unreal Engine gizmo. But even if I did like their gizmo design, I would never copy it. I would design my own. Okay. So the gizmo itself, the idea of the gizmo itself, that's not copying. It's a tool that everyone should have in 3D software. But just make sure your gizmo doesn't look exactly like the Blender gizmo. Okay. You should try to be unique for crying out loud. It won't kill you. So stuff like that. Now, um, let's talk about clouds. Let's talk about something more advanced. Let me erase this. Okay, let's talk about clouds. So let's say we have volumetric clouds. Okay. And even something like physics. Physics is typically quite an undertaking to implement in software. It's not easy at all. So um, that's why, as developers, we are so grateful anytime we can find an SDK, software development kit, that already has some features implemented. Okay. So in software development, we have something called libraries. So these libraries could be things like we have physics libraries, like bullet physics, if you've heard of that. Uh, so I believe Autodesk Maya uses the bullet physics library. Okay, so please start to understand. You have the bullet physics library. It's a library, which means it's available to everybody. It's a book you can go pull out from the library, and if you understand it, you can implement it in your software. Okay, what's going to be novel is how you implement it into your software because it's going to be differently implemented from software to software because the Maya architecture is different from the iClone architecture, which is different from the Unreal Engine architecture, which is different from the Unity architecture, which is different from the Univah architecture. So our architecture, every software has architecture. That's why you have to have systems architects for software, because the systems architect's job is to make the foundation of your software upon which everything else is built on. Okay. So, how you implement and design your UI to control these physics abilities, that's what's going to make things novel. Okay. So, having physics itself isn't novel. That's not enough for me to take that to SIGGRAPH and say, hey, SIGGRAPH, look, I have physics. I have physics. Woohoo. We're so unique. No, we're not, because iClone has physics. Unity has physics. Uh, Maya has physics. They've all had physics since before I was born. Okay, so having physics myself also in Univah, that's not something to go and praise myself too much for and say, oh my God, we're so unique. Look, we have physics. No, it's just a library. And there's so many of them. You have the Bullet Physics Library. You have the Jolt, Jolt library. It's a great library for physics. It's just not that popular. As it's not as popular as Bullet Physics, but you have Jolt library for physics. You have NVIDIA has something called PhysX library for physics. Then you have there's so many of them. There's so many physics libraries, and you can pick one. You just got to pick one. You pick the one that you like, that you feel is probably easiest to implement, that has all the features that you need for your software, for your specific needs. Because again, the one that you pick should be based on what problems it's going to solve for you and your users. Every single feature that you add should be based on what problem is this solving for my users. You should never just be adding things because you're just adding unnecessary overhead. Every library adds overhead to your software. So you don't want to just be adding stuff without thinking, is this solving a significant problem for our users? Okay? So, so that's that. You have volumetric clouds. Let's talk about volumetric clouds. What's copying and what's novel? So, did the Stephanie Michael software company invent volumetric clouds? I absolutely did not. Okay. Um, but you have different ways of implementing these clouds. You have different user interfaces for these clouds to control these clouds. Okay. And there are some parameters that should be universal for all types of clouds. Okay. So, um, understanding this as a developer, when you go in, like on our website, and some of you have purchased our clouds, we sell the uh, volumetric cloud source code. We've created source code on our website that we sell, so that those of you who are interested in learning this stuff, you can buy the source code, you can use it and implement it in your own engines. So we've tried to help a lot of developers, and a lot of people have bought our clouds. They're $300, and you guys buy it. So we've had you guys come to our website and buy our clouds for $300, okay, which is a lot more than what we sell Univah for. Okay. So we give you full permission to use those clouds in your own software. Do we not? Yes, we do. So now, when you take a look at the volumetric clouds, if Unreal Engine has a volumetric cloud plugin, Unity has volumetric clouds plugin, Blender has volumetric clouds plugin, Maya has volumetric clouds plugin, Houdini has a lot of node grabs that can make volumetric clouds from scratch. So, what's the difference now between all of these different systems who all have clouds? Well, the difference is going to be, how did they design it? The novelty comes in how it was designed, the UI that controls those clouds, the problems that it solves for the end user that the other softwares don't solve. That's where the novelty comes in. So it's not novel if you have volumetric clouds. It's novel how you implemented the volumetric clouds and if it's better or superior to the way that it's been done before. Okay? So that's where the novelty comes in. Now, um, let's see. So I hope this is making sense. There's so many features that we can go over, but the understanding and the philosophy should be the same in whatever it is that you do. Uh, it's always going to be, how are you implementing things? What problems does your user interface solve? And how are you making life better for the user versus what your competitor did? Okay. So, um, I hope this has been helpful. I want you guys to start thinking about solving problems, and the best way to know what's a problem is to use the tools that exist, to pay attention to how they frustrate you. Talk to real people that exist in the real world and ask them how they feel about certain tools. Okay. So if people tell me that they prefer working in dark mode, obviously I know that. So I'm not going to create a software that doesn't have a dark mode. That would be so insensitive to the needs of my users, you see. So I know that professionals work on software typically at night. Most professionals like to do their work at night, and they work for long hours. And when you're working at night for long hours, staring at a really bright UI, that's going to kill you. Okay. So we give you the little button, you click the little button, you switch to dark theme. Okay. So, and the dark theme is the primary theme. Okay. So, either way, the light theme is beautiful, dark theme is beautiful, both themes are beautiful. Me personally, I prefer the light theme. That's just me. But the dark theme is there for people who prefer that. So, yeah, let's talk about last thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about ray tracing, we're going to talk about PBR, and what is copying and what is not copying. Okay. So did the Stephanie Michael software company invent physically based rendering? Absolutely not. Okay. Did we invent ray tracing? Nope. So if the Stephanie Michael software company incorporates physically based rendering into Univah, and then we also add ray tracing or something like that into Univah, is is that novel? No, it's not, because a lot of other tools, excuse me, guys, that's not novel. That on its own isn't enough for us to take that and go and show at SIGGRAPH and say, hey, look, we have PBR. Okay. Adding PBR to your software is not enough to be innovative. That's not innovative. That's a feature, that's a tool, and it's always been there. Okay. So the ability to control roughness and metallic using sliders, that's not novel. That's always been something that people have been able to do. Okay. So what's going to be novel is what unique problems are we solving using PBR? Okay. What unique problems does every other tool that has PBR not solve? So from Unreal Engine that has PBR, so PBR, okay, so you have PBR. Unreal Engine has PBR. iClone has PBR. They have pretty much the worst version of PBR that you could possibly implement, but they do have PBR. Okay, iClone has PBR, just a really crappy version. And then that's why their rendering sucks. Okay, their rendering, and you probably wonder, well, how can iClone have PBR but their rendering is significantly bad? Well, it because again, it depends on if the engineers that implemented the PBR knew what they were doing. PBR is heavily based on math. Programming is heavily based on math. It's a lot of math, it's a lot of calculations. And you could really mess up the calculations. You could really mess up the energy conservation. You could really mess up the distribution GGX. You could really mess up the roughness. You could mess up a lot of things and the metallicness. You could mess up how you write your shaders. And then you end up with really crappy PBR that doesn't respond well to light. Okay, and then when you add tone mapping, there's a lot of things that goes into implementation. So when you see a software with great rendering, that's a huge testament to the engineers. The engineers know what they're doing, because you could give the same PBR book. If there's a book on PBR, you can give that to 10 developers and they're each going to get different results. Okay, they're each going to get different results. So it's there's a lot. You can have the material, but how you implement it is going to be totally different from person A to person B to person C. Okay. So you have Unreal Engine's implementation of PBR. You have Maya's version of PBR. You have You have Unity's PBR. You have Disney's PBR. You have Pixar's PBR. You have Univah's PBR. And if we all were to share our source code with each other, if all these companies got together and we said, "Hey, let's show our cards to each other," and we all shared our PBR implementation, you'd be like, whoa, that's so different from how I do things. And then person B over there would be like, whoa, that's so different. Unity does it so different from how Univah does it. Unreal Engine does it so differently from how iClone does it. And you realize, wow, we may all have PBR, but it's a totally different story in the architecture. Okay. So um, just because I have PBR and you as a developer, you go and you make a little engine and you also add PBR, that does not mean you're copying me. I don't have the right to sue you because you went and added PBR to your software, to your engine. I don't own PBR. PBR is like a library. It's like a book in a library. It's available to the public. Anybody can read that book, implement it, implement the information from that book into their software. Okay? So I don't own PBR. I don't own ray tracing. Anybody can implement that. It's not copying. Okay? Um, so just knowing the difference between what is copying, what is not copying, that in itself saves you a lot of problem. And let me tell you something. Do you want to know why I've never had to have a problem? I've never had a problem with anyone accusing me of copying, is because every single thing we do, I do it based on problem solving. When you look at how our cameras are set up, just even our cameras, it's so different. I decided that we're the only software company that has the Univah name on their cameras. That in itself gives it a nice touch that no other software company does. Unity, Unreal, they don't have their name on their cameras. We do. Okay. We wanted to make it a film engine. We wanted to make it look professional. And so putting that Univah branding on the cameras lets you know, yeah, you're in a different engine. You're in a different place. Even the cameras are branded. Okay. So we have branded cameras. That's unique. It's beautiful. It's a nice touch. And then we have what kind of camera it is on the camera itself. So most companies, most software companies like iClone cameras, you go look at iClone cameras, it's just a generic little icon. Go look at Maya cameras, it's just a generic little icon. Go look at Unreal Engine cameras, Unity cameras, just a generic icon. Okay. The Univah cameras are specific. We tell you this is a 30 millimeter TV projection and it's labeled on the camera. If you add a 70 millimeter, it's on the camera. It's in the camera 3D model that I made. I made those 3D models myself in SketchUp. So I developed these camera 3D models and I use them as our actual cameras. So um, that's novel because no software company did that before us. Okay. And if you start seeing them do that, they're copying us. That's copying. Okay. Because before us, nobody did that. Nobody thought like that before us. So now when you click on a camera, you look at the camera settings in the attribute editor. What do you see? You see some really beautiful stuff. Because again, I designed the camera attributes to solve a problem. I designed it that way to solve a problem that I noticed in Maya. In Maya, if you have, and same thing in iClone, if you want to change the resolution gate or all those fancy things, you have to go to like a different setting. You have to go find out where in the world in iClone the resolution gate is, because it's not just conveniently placed in the settings where the camera is. So in Univah, what did we do? We placed all that stuff in one section. You click on a camera, you go to the attribute editor, what do you see? You see camera settings. And in those camera settings, what should you see? You should see lenses, because that's how it works in the real world. In the real world, you have the camera body, then you have different lenses you can swap out. Okay, so in digital space, we have the camera body, you have different lenses you can swap out. Okay, that's how real cameras work in the real world. And that's how it works in most digital content creation tools like Maya, even iClone, a lot of them, different lenses, camera body, all that stuff. Okay, so where it starts to get unique is you notice that in our camera settings, we conveniently have resolution gate, film gate. We have all those things there. We're going to have depth of field. It's going to be right there in the camera settings. We're going to have motion blur. It's going to be right there in the camera settings. We're not going to put the motion blur somewhere else. Why would we put it somewhere else? You see, so motion blur, depth of field, resolution gate, film gate, right there in the camera settings, right under where you would set the lenses. Okay, so um, these little design choices, those are quality of life improvements. It makes life easier for your end user. So they don't have to go hunting around for where is the resolution gate? Oh, let me Google it. Let's Google where how to find resolution gate in Maya. You know, oh, let's how to find film gate in iCloud. So in Univah, we spare you all the Googling by just putting it where you would think it should be. The common sense place to put those things is in the camera settings. Okay. So we noticed that in other softwares, it wasn't really that simple. So we made it simple in Univah with our cameras. Okay. So that's something we can brag about and we can say that's novel. Having cameras isn't novel, but the way we have cameras, that's novel. The way we do things is novel because other tools don't do it that way. Okay. All right. So yeah, if you guys need help, I do workshops. I teach how to make, software. I teach a lot of stuff. So if you want to book me for an hour to teach you for 1 hour or 2 hours, you can book me for starting at 250. 250, that's like my starting price. And I will talk to you, I'll help you, I will advise you. I can advise software developers on what to do, what not to do, how to avoid lawsuits, because you will be sued. Stop taking this as a joke. Stop thinking it's a game. People care about the stuff they create, so stop stealing. Stop. It's not cute. Okay, it's not cute. Stop thinking you're cute by being a thief. It's not. You're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. So I'm going to teach you how to think like a problem solver so that you avoid getting yourself in trouble. Okay, so you can book me and pay me for my time, and I will teach you all this stuff. Okay, I can help you design your tool. I can help you, uh, you know, design your own software. I can help you. That's what a software company does. That's what I do at my company. Okay, I help other people design their tools. Okay, so uh, if you need my help because you're not good at design or you need just an extra ear, you want someone who's an expert in beauty, who is good at making things beautiful and optimized and excellent. If you want someone like that, that's me. And you can see proof of that in Univah. So you can hire me and I will help your company. I will help your small company. I will help your big company. Doesn't matter how big or small your company is. I can work with all teams. Okay. I have experience in working with hundreds of people. I can be in charge of hundreds of thousands of people. It's really not a big deal. Okay. So you can contact me on the SM Software Company website and we can go from there. Okay. Thank you for your time. Have a good day. Hope this helped. Well, I don't have to hope. I know this helped. So have a good day. I'll see you next week.